Hello, my name is Anna, and I'm here to explain the important updates now that the CMMC rule has been published. It took 3 years, 10 months, and 26 days, but the Department of Defense finally published CMMC on December 26, 2023. CMMC is a proposed rule, not a final rule. This means there's a public comment period that lasts until February 26, 2024, before we can officially see CMMC in contracts. The Department of Defense needs to respond to those comments. On average, this takes about a year, which means we should see CMMC officially in contracts around Q1 of 2025. The rule proposes a 3-year phased approach in requiring CMMC in contracts. Every year, the Department of Defense will choose a certain number of contracts that will have the CMMC requirement. The number of contracts requiring CMMC certification will increase each year until every contract has the requirement sometime in 2028. For most people, CMMC will look very similar to what we have seen. There aren't many major changes like we saw from version 1.0 to 2.0. But there are still some important updates to be aware of. First, the cost of becoming compliant is not a consideration. The Department of Defense states multiple times that the Level 1 and 2 requirements have been in place, and the costs should have already been incurred. CMMC will officially only be a requirement for new contracts. CMMC will not retroactively apply to old contracts. The Department of Defense will state at least 6 months before the solicitation is issued whether or not CMMC is a requirement. The last 2 updates to be aware of are IT managed service providers are going to need to receive a CMMC certificate before their clients can, and cloud service providers must meet the FedRAMP requirements. CSP will either need to be listed in the FedRAMP marketplace or show through documentation they satisfy all the FedRAMP requirements. Organizations seeking compliance should have their CSP system security plan, policies and procedures, and customer responsibility matrix to prove they meet the requirements. The Department of Defense did their best to estimate the number of entities that would require certification, as well as costs. However, these numbers are likely too low. Market forces will drive prices up as more companies need this certification. A shortage in the number of assessors will initially drive prices up as we get closer to 2025. Additionally, the number of organizations that will need compliance is likely much higher. This is because the Department of Defense is only able to see 2 layers deep into the supply chain. The Department of Defense also doesn't take into account IT managed service providers who now need a CMMC certificate. Thanks for watching. We hope this was helpful in understanding the recent updates to the CMMC rulemaking process. If you still have questions or need assistance in becoming CMMC compliant, please feel free to reach out to the FirstCall Compliance team to see how we can help.